Adam Johnson has a great take on this. The ideological work here is worth pointing out. It's so casual and banal, but it's impressive how the deck gets stacked. Chicago doesn't grapple with underinvestment, poverty, inequality, dispossession, or systemic racism. It always grapples with crime and insufficient austerity. That is how the neoliberal media cuts its propaganda. This is the Associated Press. Understand, this is the Associated Press. This is supposed to be objective. But in that objectivity, you see the advocacy for neoliberal austerity measures and the only solution to crime coming from aggressive enforcement and police operating like an occupying force, and never about spending money in underfunded, underserved, underprivileged communities. Look at that. Brandon Johnson, a union organizer and former teacher, was elected as Chicago's next mayor on Tuesday in a major victory for the Democratic Party's progressive wing as the heavily blue city grapples with high crime and financial challenges. Is that on purpose, though? Of course it's on purpose. The way that you could objectively frame this, if you had a legitimate interest in emancipation, a legitimate interest in like advocating for the material equality of people, you could cut this article with the same exact title, the title that Adam Johnson wrote. Okay? Brandon Johnson, a union organizer and former teacher, was elected as Chicago's next mayor on Tuesday in a major victory for the Democratic Party's progressive wing as the heavily blue city voted for someone who said they would truly tackle underinvestment, poverty, systemic inequality, dispossession, and systemic racism. There you go. That's the correct way, the leftist way, but also the, objectively, in my opinion, correct way to cover that story. I don't think it's on purpose. I legitimately don't think they realize it. It's like the Chomsky line. Yeah, I know. When I talk about the media, I'm talking about like this organism. I'm not talking about the individuals that are like thinking this through or not. Do you not get what I'm saying? I'm saying like the media as a unit. The media as a unit is pumping this commentary out under the auspices of neutrality, objectivity, when there's two ways to cover this issue, and they rarely ever talk about the issue from the perspective of systemic solutions. Do you get it? A few days ago, the AP ran an article calling the U.S. abduction of an Iraqi child of war as an adoption. You mean the Afghan child? They did that. You're right. And CBS has been covering it too in the same exact way. This is why I say the media defends capital. The media is a defensive wing of capital. I am a little confused. Are you saying that everyone is taught to write and push stuff like this because it's supposed to be neutral? Okay. What I'm stating is that what they're writing here is an inherently right-wing attitude to crime. There's two solutions to crime. One is one that hasn't worked so far. Okay? Which is hyper-enforcement, police spending more money on the police, and not trying to tackle the actual reasons as to why crime manifests, violent crime and the like. The AP article is not neutral. No media is neutral. There's no such thing as, objective, unbiased media coverage for the most part. Because neutrality simply implies, in a neoliberal system, neutrality simply implies that you are abiding by the system and making it seem like that is the default. Here, I'll give you an example. For the longest time, gaming is a new sector, but for the longest time, video games usually featured a white male as the primary character. That was seen as the default. So anything that strayed away from that was considered political. Okay? The Associated Press, if they wrote an article talking about the actual systemic reasons as to why crime works or crime manifests, systemic inequality, that would be considered editorializing and not neutral. Because neutral in this regard would be advocating for austerity measures and more police brutality or more funding for the police. Okay? But the default being a white male character is inherently a political concept. There is no real neutrality in this argument, in this headline, because they are interpreting a city's ongoing political problems. Now, there's two factors here. Even if crime was like grappling with high crime, this would still be an unfair assessment. Okay? But also, it's not true. Crime is down everywhere on year-over-year trends. Homicide is down from 2021. Shootings are down from 2021. Crime is not higher. It's actually lower. Crime is up year over year within my house. Crime is also down on yearly trends as well. Why is it that crime seems to spike specifically around the U.S. election cycle? What would you say? What would you, Uncle, say about this? Specific areas of increases, huh? Yes. Homicide is the only type of crime that's up in Los Angeles, for example, which is a pretty significant crime to consider, except the reality is that it is not one that impacts the neighborhoods that my uncle frequents. It's simply a poverty issue regardless.